All right, from the roads, we now get started with the second part of this show. This is In the Headlines, part 2, where we get to have a look at what the papers have for us today. Remember, we still use the hashtag Good Morning Kenya on Twitter. Our official station handle is at KBC Channel 1. Our individual handles ever remain to be at Victor Oloo, at Doreen Arange, at Regina Manyara, and at Jain Wambui. Let me run you through the front page of the Daily Nation. As you can see from the caption there, the main read, not an inch, Kenya rejects C verdict. This is in regards to the ICJ ruling that was made yesterday, where the International Court upheld Somalia's when it comes to the maritime border dispute that we have been seeing. They sided with Somalia, and this is something that, even prior to this judgment, the president had said that we will not be surrendering even an inch of the country. And of course, given that Kenya did pull out of the ICJ, what next for us as a country? And also looking at this particular ruling and judgment that was given, and also looking at the border row, will it continue, or what avenues will be sought to just bring this conflict to an end? Coming to the other stories that have been featured here, there's an interesting piece here concerning hit squads, and it has emerged that rogue police are the top of the list when it comes to contract killers, and that story has been covered in great detail here on page 8 of this particular daily, and it is from a report that was done that was dubbed Targeted Killings in Eastern and Southern Africa. It is a global study that was done just looking at the targeted killings that have been witnessed over the past number of years. And it has emerged that corrupt law enforcers, hardcore criminals, are reportedly the most dangerous assassins in Kenya. And we also saw the National Police Service spokesman, comment in regards to this report and dismissed it, saying it is erroneous and misleading because it does not bring out data to support the claims. We'll be giving you more details of that particular piece in a bit. And finally, Raila allies cry fall over new voters, with MPs accusing the Electoral Commission of bias, saying that there are few polling stations that have been allocated in ODM leaders' stronghold areas, looking at this mass registration process that is currently ongoing. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the front page of the Daily Nation for you. We'll be getting to the details in a bit. Victor.
Absolutely. All right, and on the front page of the Star, rise of poker king Justin Muturi, the would-be pilot who was suspended from high school, believes he can bring order. All right, JB talks about his life journey there. He's also gunning for that support to be the next president come next year. Rise of poker king Justin Muturi. You can take a look at that story that is fleshed out for you on the front page of the Star newspaper. Crisis rocks Jubilee Party as nearly 70 employees sacked in radical purge. I will give you more details on that. And 20 million shillings court award for girl who lost hands in electrocution. This is a story again. Uhuru urges leaders to embrace diversity in his New York speech. So the story of the Jubilee purge says that Tuju says later by acting executive director, a miscommunication, a crisis has rocked President Uhuru Kenyatta's Jubilee after the party moved to sack nearly 70 employees, with directors and senior managers among the casualties. There is no speculation. There is speculation that Jubilee Secretary General Raphael Tuju was kept in the dark about the purge, triggering confusion. The affected staffers have threatened to sue the party if Tuju and Uhuru fail to act swiftly to reverse the decision that they termed a plot to forcefully take over the party. Okay, Matters Health, MOH, banks on outreach to attain Mashujaa Day vaccination target. The government is banking on community mobilization at the lowest levels and political goodwill to attain the Mashujaa Day vaccination target of 5.8 million. So far, slightly above 4.2 million people have been jabbed countrywide, with the government now targeting 1.6 million in the next 1 week. That is there for you. So, inside plan by state to reduce public universities' debt. The Ministry of Education is engaging public universities management to narrow down their expenditure in a quest to reduce their indebtedness. In a report tabled by the Departmental Committee on Education and Research, the ministry recommended restructuring and resizing universities. This includes stopping duplicated courses and rationalizing the number of administrative posts and units. That is on matters education. And that story of a lady who was electrocuted when she was just 15 years old. And she has been awarded 20 million shillings for losing her arms in the incident. Court dismisses Kenya Power appeal, says that girl deserves fund for prosthetic limbs. After 4-year wait, a 19-year-old girl whose hands were amputated after electrocution by Kenya Power Lines can now be fitted with 20 million shillings prosthetic arms. She received the good news on October 8th after the Court of Appeal declined to interfere with the award of 20 million made by the lower court. So she was collecting fire, according to the story, according to the court files, she was collecting firewood for her mother when she got electrocuted. She was 15 years old at that time. Now, while she was gathering firewood, she came with contact with the live electric wires while lying exposed on the ground. She suffered severe injuries to her arms, her hands, and part of the arms were amputated. So her mother filed the case at the High Court in Meru. Justice Alfred Mabea awarded the minor 20 million shillings. But the court even says that the 20 million shillings, might not bring the girl back to her original state before the incident. So 20 million shillings was awarded to her. All right. President Uhuru Kenyatta is in the New York, but there's some good news here. And there was a dispatch yesterday from the White House where the statement by White House Press Secretary General, that is Jain Wambui, on the bilateral meeting between President Joseph Biden Jr. and President Uhuru Kenyatta of Kenya. And this on Thursday, 14th, President Joseph R. Biden Jr. will host President Uhuru Kenyatta of Kenya at the White House. The leaders will discuss the strong U.S.-Kenyan bilateral relationship and the need to bring transparency and accountability to domestic and international financial systems. They will also discuss efforts to defend democracy and human rights, advance peace and security, accelerate economic growth, and tackle climate change. The meeting will build on the leaders' phone call in February and on President Biden's commitment to the U.S. partnership with Africa based on principles of mutual respect and equality. So President Kenyatta will be at the White House tomorrow. Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the program. This is still Good Morning Kenya. We continue unpacking for you how our dailies are looking like. And on the front page of the People's Daily, we obviously have that story concerning the Kenya-Somalia maritime rule and how the ICJ ruled in favor of Somalia, with the article well highlighting how the court divided the disputed areas. But also the Kenyan government, that is the state, accused the judges of proceeding with the case despite a 2009 agreement between the two countries on how to resolve the row amicably. So what next for Kenya? How will this perhaps ruling affect even Kenya, Somalia in terms of relation and and things such as that? That article also continues to well highlight that. Coming to matters elections, we obviously know that the IBC is still out there to continue registering voters. And yesterday, before the National Assembly, that is Professor Ali Abdi Gulie, who mentioned that they are not going to extend it any further. It's supposed to end on November 3rd. That is a 30-day process, or better yet, exercise. And he attributed this to the fact that there's no enough money or finances for extending that voter registration. This was after lawmakers just perhaps asked the commission to see whether or not they're going to extend it any further. So unless they provide more money, they're not going to extend it. So that only means that Kenya Kenyans perhaps need to go out there and get registered as voters. Speaking of that, and perhaps the 2022 general elections, right now, as it stands, there may be a possibility that unofficial names could be allowed on the ballot. For instance, something like how you know your political leaders with the nicknames that you know them for. That is how their names might just be appearing on the ballot come 2022 if this bill is amended. That is the Election Act number 24 of 2011. So just giving some example, perhaps the Deputy President William Ruto, his name appearing as Hustler, the ODM leader Raila Odinga, his name appearing as Baba, as well as various other leaders if that bill gets to be amended. And also yesterday we talked about that man who impersonated as a magistrate for a total period of 3 years. So the latest is that now the court detains the fake magistrate, that is Victor Ngeno, for 2 weeks. That is what is currently happening in regards to that particular story there. We also have on matters education, the back to school. Again, this is just in respect and in effect to the fact that yes, this is the school reopening week after that 1 week break, and parents have been complaining of the fees as well as the hike in bus fares as they return children back to school. Also, a spot check done by PD showed that people are not adhering to COVID-19 protocols amidst the fact that children are going back to school there. So there's that also on matters education, as well as to the counties, Nyandarua to close 1,800 liquor outlets. And this is just to... Actually, since the year 2017, that particular county has had no alcohol regulations and licensing, leading to rapid rise in the number of unlicensed outlets. So that is also one of the reasons that is informing the closure of at least 1,800 liquor outlets or liquor stores in that particular county. Also in Nandi County, a man has hacked lover to death in that particular county. When you get the details, I'll be telling you why that has happened, as well as many other more. Ray.
It seems the scribes were, reading from the same script this morning, being the 13th of October 2021, and I'd want to delve deeper into the details. I'd want to pick it up from what you mentioned there, Doreen, that now politicians are picking catchy nicknames to woo voters. We will see so much ahead of the general election 2022. Just to give you but a few sneak peek, Murang'a Governor Mwangi wa Iria, official name is actually Francis Mainge Mwangi, while Kiambu Senator Kimani Wamatangi, is Paul Kimani. Former Kiambu Governor Ferdinand Waitito, you all know him and refer to him as Baba Yao, Mawakahere, Kieni MP Kanini Kega. A majority even think that these are their real names. They changed their names. They actually have changed their names, and Kanini Kega changed his name to Kanini Kega from James Mathenge Simon. While Murang'a Women Rep Sabina Wanjiru Chege, who is also a former employee of Kenya Broadcasting Corporation some years back, changed her name to Sabina Maito Wanjiru Chege. Habari ndio hiyo. But remember, this deed poll is a declaration detailing one's intention to change their name, and it must entail a notification from the referee. The registrar may, however, reject a proposal if the change promotes criminal activities. Sawa. Or it is impossible to pronounce the names, includes numbers, symbols, promotes racial or religious hatred, promotes the use of drugs, is vulgar, or includes at least one former and one username. The Registrar of Documents has only 2 offices in the country currently. That is in Nairobi and Mombasa County. So now we are out here to fancy names and nicknames to woo voters. We will see so much. The question is, have they delivered on what they promised?
Or it's just names
before they took office? Or is it this time where they remember, the roads in my constituency are in a deplorable state. The sewerage is terrible. Security, last minute rush. You as a constituent, you need to remember that you are the employer of the leaders. And it is time that we practice servant leadership. You lead by setting the pace. Get your hands dirty. Not every last 6 months towards the general election, but all the time. That's why you're paid by the taxpayers, and that's why you've been chosen as a leader. And sometimes I hear people saying, and even quoting the good book, that leaders are appointed by God. Then I ask myself, really? Really? Are they? They're the ones who cast the ballot. And unfortunately, if we look at the history, the Kenyan history as it is, we vote by tribal lines. Nepotism comes into play. Tribalism comes into play. We have never brought our leaders to book when it comes to service delivery. And being the 21st century and the age of internet and the youth, from one youth to another, I think we need to exercise our voice and vote. I'm just wondering here, Jane, Doreen, and Victor, if the youth make up the majority of Kenya's population, so to speak, men and women, if we decided to field a candidate of our choice as the youth, not what is already available, and we decided to vote, would be unstoppable. But have we? Are our minds as free? Are they? Exercising your vote is your democratic right, remember. And voter apathy, even as IEBC talks about voter apathy, what you need to know, you not voting basically means you have ceded your power. You let the person who has woken up at 5 a.m. make that decision for you. It means you are not taking part at the table. You're not taking part. You're not seated at the table. You're not even with the table. You need to exercise your democratic right. As they say, democracy is a situation where the majority will have their way, but the minority will always have their say. Jane, did I preach there? I tried not to quote the Bible.
Apu mehubiri, and it reminds me of, I don't remember whose post this was, but they likened the lack of voting that so many people have, made a pattern and a habit over the years. Those who just decide, yes, I have I'm a registered voter, I'm of age, I can go cast my ballot, but I refuse to do so. That was likened to drug abuse, because one definition of drug abuse is when you have the medicine, but you take today, kesho unaruka, then unakumbuka the next day, I need to take my medicine. That is also drug abuse and misuse. And there's somebody who likened that habit to those of us that fail to vote, and yet you have the right, you have been given the time, the venue, everything, but you still choose not to. But anywho, let me bring you to the Daily Nation. And I know this story concerning the maritime conflict. The maritime conflict has been featured on almost all the dailies. And here, in as much as the main read is in regards to the judgment that was given, there is an interesting piece that just looks at the ripple effect that will come after this was it ruling or judgment? Judgment, yes. The judgment that was made by the ICJ. Now, tough choices lay ahead for Uhuru Kenyatta when it comes to Kenyan troops in Somalia. This is just but one of the ripple effects that we'll be seeing unfold in time. And following that unfavorable judgment on the maritime dispute with Somalia, the KDF has now been left in a catch-22 situation. Why is this? Looking at the fact that KDF has been part of a 12,000 strong AMISOM force that has been helping Somalia National Security Forces to fight Al-Shabaab, part of what they're supposed to do is also protect the territory of Somalia. And given this new judgment that favored Somalia's equidistance formula, they will now have to go and guard the territory that has been declared to be within the Somalia bounds. And these are KDF forces that will be required to go and guard these particular boundaries. And now, on the other hand, is the decision that President Kenyatta and his generals have to make and to decide whether to continue assisting the security in a quote-unquote an enemy state rather, and at the same time deploy our own defending forces to go guard the same territory, which of course our president said we are not ceding even an inch of Kenya's territory to anyone. So this essentially puts KDF against KDF, you know? And this is not something that I'm sure our president wants to see play out. So now he is in a catch-22 situation. We await to see what he will have to say in regards to this. Of course, the decision will come from him as well as his generals to decide whether to pull the troops out or to continue with the operations in the war-torn nation under the Africa Union Mission for Somalia, popularly known as AMISOM. And I don't know what you guys feel about this. You know, looking at this maritime border dispute, it started way back in 2014, and that is when, you know, Somalia said that, you know, it needs to go diagonally and not horizontally, while Kenya says it needs to go along the latitude lines. And now yesterday the ICJ did say that, you know, Somalia's equidistance formula is what will be followed. Of course, not favorable judgment for Kenya. But now looking at this particular situation with our KDF forces there, I don't know if they've indicated the number. Okay, yeah, there's a 12,000 strong, at least 12,000 KDF member. Yes, 12,000 KDF are there to help when it comes to the peacekeeping in that particular nation. And they'll also be expected to secure the 160,000 square kilometer territory in the Indian Ocean, which is believed to contain vast oil and gas deposits. Let me start with you, Vic. Looking at this situation and the decision that the president has to make, KDF against KDF, should he choose to not pull out the KDF forces that are in Somalia?
Well, I think in his response to the media yesterday at the UN Security Council in New York, he said that he will respond accordingly after going through the judgment, because that judgment just came after during that council meeting in New York. But then, looking at the situation, the Operation Linda Inchi began before 2014, during the Kibaki era. So it began, it all started, you remember how it all started, that the two tourists who were abducted sometimes in coast, and then it forced the government now to take the troops in Somalia. And then it's not Kenyan troops alone who are in Somalia. It's an AMISOM. We have got, some from Uganda, from Rwanda, and what have you. So it's a very tight rope the president is going to walk. Now he's going to distinguish between the operation in Somalia and the maritime border dispute between the two nations. When you distinguish the two, then you realize that all of them have weight. KDF will have to stay in Somalia until something is done, or until AMISOM ratifies their exit. But then that will take some time, because their mission in Somalia is way bigger than what people would actually think about. The maritime border dispute, again, there's a cartoon here trying to make fun of President Kenyatta, saying that, talking to Farmajo, that, gentlemen, do you know what we do to court orders? It's a cartoon actually here, whether that is the case or not. But then look at it this way. The UN court in The Hague made that resolution yesterday. So the two countries will have to sit down to decide on how they are going to go about it. Some people would say that it was not a big loss for Kenya per se, but then the president will have to walk a very delicate step with his counterpart Farmajo, just to ensure that that relationship between Somalia and Kenya is not eroded. That is my take.
But there are also those that are saying that this particular judgment does not affect the country in any way due to the pulling out. And then also the president did say they will deploy military power to defend the country, or rather to fight off any form of aggression that will be, if in any case that will arise.
Doreen, Andre.
I mean, just looking about, picking from what Vika said about that delicate step, it reminds me of that time in 2009 when the two countries had sort of decided to sort this issue amicably. However, that didn't quite happen. And just coming to my thinking, what if that could have just been extended, that to sort out this issue amicably? Because when you look at Kenya and Somalia, clearly there's a lot of relations, there's a lot of ties, and looking at how the ICJ ruled in favor of Somalia, what honestly does this mean for Kenya? Much as there's those that are saying that Kenya has not lost a lot, but clearly, what does it say when it comes to those relations between Kenya and Somalia? Just question of wait and see.
Well, in my take, when I see this push and pull between Somalia and Kenya, I actually see workings of another player or players pushing this maritime dispute, and I know that there are companies and firms that are sponsored by various countries who would prefer to either trade with Somalia, when it comes to oil and gas exploration and such. So there's a lot that is not being said. There's a lot that is not being said, even at the courts and such. And remember, even before this particular verdict was given, Kenya had already said that it is actually unfair because it was never given a fair hearing to present its documents and such. And the question about AMISOM, KDF, security and such, we have walked such a long journey with Somalia, and I'm also wondering to our Kenyan authorities, so to speak, since we're talking about our territorial waters and land, how come we've never given so much interest to Migingo Island? Remember, these have been waters and an island that has been in dispute for years. For eons, actually, to a point that persons who reside at the Migingo Island, and Victor, you can weigh in on this, they argue that the security apparatus manning the particular island are from neighboring Uganda. And the current president of Uganda, that is Yoweri Museveni, has been quoted saying, I don't know if it is the water that belongs to Kenya, and I don't know what belongs to what, but now I'm just thinking, if we go back to those pre-colonial and also post-colonial demarcations in as far as Kenya's, territorial waters and land is concerned, where does Migingo lie squarely? Because the disputed 255,000 kilometer area there is based on the 1979, drawing of map such as it is, diagonal latitude lines and such. But the real thing, it's not about the boundaries. It's about that disputed area has already been earmarked or identified as an oil and gas rich area. So there are other players in mind. There are other players at play other than Somalia and Kenya. There are other people who are interested, other countries, private sector governments and such, who are interested. A win for Somalia would be a win for them. A win for Kenya would be a win for... So we're there. So I think, and I'd want to quote one of the lawyers and professors who was weighing in this conversation, saying, these two countries now, the leaders of these two countries need to go the amicable way, the way we solve our disputes traditionally. Tunaita kikao, wazee wa kijiji wanazungumza. Because we're still neighbors. We're not going to wish away Somalia, and Somalia cannot wish away Kenya, so to speak. So this professor, the name actually slipped my mind, but they're saying that this is a high time that Somalia and Kenya had a conversation away from, public limelight, away from the courts and such, to get to, an amicable solution. Because remember, the North Now, even from the first story that we had on the drought situation, we had, the North remembers, we had Kenyans who are in the northern region actually, just walking into Somalia and Ethiopia because of the drought situation. So we cannot wish each other away. It's our leaders now to come together and get an amicable solution, which I think can be achieved. But
Regina, just weigh in briefly. I think the issue of Migingo, not even Migingo, the border dispute between Kenya, Uganda, and now with Somalia. Let me just say that I think Kenya is a peaceful nation. we really don't like going the kind of, let me use the word thorax, to solve issues, because issues with borderline, nation to nation kind of relations, Migingo but there is a big nut. It's a very hard nut to crack. One point, fishermen from this lake going to the other side of the country and they get, arrested and all that. But we've always found a solution. Remember when the story has it that when former president, the late Idi Amin, tried to do something to push the boundary of Uganda to some part of Kenya, the president said, "Hey, usijaribu."
Boss,
relax. Oh yeah. Tulia.
And if you saw what Twitter, the conversation around Twitter, Kenyans were actually using President Uhuru Kenyatta's pics in military regalia and saying, we're not ceding ground.
even an inch.
Yeah.
So you can bet, you're talking about thorax. Thorax kifua. I think at some point, when push comes to shove, you shove and you shove hard.
But I think for us to get to that point, then something will have to give way. Exactly. But as a nation, with the kind of, the century we are in right now, the time, the number of people who actually form a bigger chunk of population, 75% according to 2019 census, the youth, between the age of 30, 18, 35, 40, kwenda hapo juu. So when you bring, God forbid, a war between two nations because of a border dispute, you can imagine how many people will suffer. It will take years to resolve such a dispute. You can imagine.
And then again, looking at the fact that we are gearing up for the general elections, and also there's been so much pressure on the president when it comes to his legacy, you see, and this is also one of those key things that people are now looking up at him, like heavy is now the head
that wears the crown.
Yes. So what move are you going to make? Are you going to accept this judgment, or are you going to fight to make sure that Kenyan territory, as per what you have said, not even an inch. We are not going to cede even an inch. What's your next move? So you can imagine the kind of pressure that he is actually going to be experiencing. And given now that you're actually pitting KDF, or which is part of the AMISOM that is there, versus the KDF, of course, that is going to be deployed there together with the Navy to guard our territory. You can imagine how much pressure the president is actually under looking at this particular situation. So I don't think it's an something we can just easily brush off. Heavy is the head.
I think the two gentlemen, President Kenyatta, there is so much that is happening behind the scenes. We have got think tanks, we have got advisors, legal researchers, we have got diplomatic, point men sitting between the two gentlemen, just trying to bring that kind of sanity. We might not know what is happening behind the scenes, but trust you me, these two nations are well developed. What is happening between State House and the Federal Republic of Somalia, the two gentlemen, is just so much. We might not see them,
of course, play it out in public.
Exactly, in public, but A lot is happening. And I believe that President Kenyatta and Farmajo, he's been coming to State House. Mara mingi sana. He's a frequent visitor.
Doreen, as you conclude.
Yes, as I conclude.
Maliza ndio na mimi niko na kawimbo.
Also, let me just say,
before tuende hiyo Doreen jump in na Regina tuimbia, we are being told to take a very quick breather to fikiria what decisions we'll make also to get into this particular piece. And we will be back to continue. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the program. This is still Good Morning Kenya. We continue with our segment in the headlines, and just to pick up from that conversation concerning Kenya-Somalia Maritime Road, this is after the ICJ ruled in favor of Somalia. And we were having this conversation before we went on break, just trying to say what next for these two countries, going by the fact that there was also a lot of conversations from Kenyans online yesterday, and all this is just sort of mounting pressure to the president. We also know that at some point he really just wants to make sure that he can be remembered for something. It's a very critical kind of situation. And what also we're trying to say is that could sorting this issue amicably, sort of like as brothers, be the only way to go? We also know that in 2019, at some point, Kenya recalled its ambassador in Mogadishu. This is after accusing Somalia of auctioning of oil and gas blocks in the contested area. And just as Ray, you have told us that clearly there's a lot going on. There's a lot behind the scenes. And we know that this is also a very critical and a crucial area. So perhaps fighting could not be a solution. I mean, just going also by the ICJ judgment, clearly they've given it to Somalia also just by demarcating some areas, which ones goes to Kenya, which ones go to Somalia. So perhaps sitting as brothers, kuongea tu ikitu might be the only solution that perhaps might be there. Because I mean, Kenya and Somalia, really, the two countries have come a long way. And like we're saying, we cannot wish away each other. We can't. It's just, it is what it is. So perhaps sorting it as brothers could be the only solution. Amicably, just discussing, having conversations, communication.
There's so many things in play, and also we need to look at the security situation. For Kenya. Right, and I also think Kenya is going to be using its influence in the UN Security Council to get some few things done. It's not the first time that we've had issues of insecurity emanating, from the Al-Shabaab militia and such. We started way back in 1997, with the bombing, the August bombing, and over the years we have experienced all this, and Kenya has done everything in its capacity to ensure that it secures its people and its borders. So here we find ourselves at a crux between our neighbor and ourselves. I'm sure there's a lot, as Victor said, there's a lot that is happening. Technocrats, legal, everybody is working this particular case. But now on a lighter note, I know it's not a Thursday yet, where we say Thursday is a new Friday. Whenever because Jain has said, heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? And we are all looking up to what President Uhuru Kenyatta, as the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, what he's going to say in this regard. Is this actually a threat? What steps are we likely to take? Two particular songs, and now my age will start to show on air, but hey, that has never been a problem. If you're familiar with Billy Ocean, there's a song that says, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Then I know once in a while when people are having a good time, even here at KBC Channel 1 and the country, Sundowner and such, this is a song that is often played, Coward of the County by Kenny Rogers. So it goes, promise me, son, not to do the things I've done. Walk away from trouble if you can. Yeah? It wouldn't mean you're weak if you turn the other cheek. I hope you understand. So the son, after some years, this is advice from a father to a son who actually went to jail for doing the nasty and was trying to advise his son not to do the same. But he got married, he had a life, and someone took advantage of his wife. And they were laughing at him because they referred to him as a coward. Yella, actually.
Of the county.
If you read the lyrics. So he actually took a stand for the first time in his life and went against what his dad said. And he said, sometimes you have to fight to be a man. That's what is playing in my head when I look at the Kenya-Somalia border. And yeah, we will be knowing what the president has to say as the commander-in-chief of the armed forces and as far as this situation is concerned. But what we need to know is that, we will remain peaceful. We are always peaceful and loving citizens. But at times when you're threat, when you're pushed to a corner, you're likely to act. And we have seen over the years, Kenya try to act and assert its authority within its borders. For the sake of us, the citizens, will be keenly watching what the next move is in regard to that particular ruling by the ICJ. Now, let me take you back to matters local. And for a parent, when a child goes missing, even for a few hours, you can't find them, you panic. So it's back to school, and a boda boda has been arrested over an incident where a pupil's bag and phone were found in the suspect's house. So a family is seeking answers after a 17-year-old girl who was found dead. That is the body of Cynthia Makoha, who was found floating in River Lusumu. She was a Form 4 student at Kibera Secondary School in Nairobi. Now, according to the Mumia Sub-County Police Commander Stephen Mwoni, the body was discovered by residents of East Wanga last Sunday. So this is what happens. According to the mother, the daughter left for mashinani, during the holidays and such, but never reached home as expected. So she called the sister. They informed the daughter has boarded a certain bus, headed to Mumias. She arrived there, she called back. Something was amiss at some point when she could not get to talk to her the way she wanted. At some point, she calls and she hears her daughter wailing, crying, and the calls terminates abruptly. And that's the last time she communicated with her daughter. They did a follow-up. And apparently a boda boda rider picked her up, or rather her bag as well as her phone. Some few hours into the night, a message comes through to the mom saying that she's safe and that she'd be traveling home tomorrow, but he did not say where she was. Family is panicking. At the same time, her Facebook page is uploaded. A photo is uploaded on her Facebook page of a face of a man unknown to the family. Investigation, the sleuths do their investigation. The phone is traced back to the house of the suspect, and her bag, pupil's bag, is found there. So on Sunday, a relative called the family saying a body had been spotted floating in River Lusumu, and it turned out to be Cynthia's. So according to the Prem investigations, a villager claimed that it was not the first time that the suspect had been accused of abduction. The victims, he said, are always trafficked to a neighboring country. How safe are our children, especially during this, back to school situation? How safe are our children? They're traveling from home. You're expecting them in school. They're using public transport. Just how safe are our children? And are you your brother's keeper where children are concerned? If you saw someone dragging a child, would you want to know why they're dragging this child? Would you? Do we? Are we concerned? Jane, Doreen, Victor?
I hear of these cases and I shiver, man. Considering kids are growing and one day you will have to allow your child to have some sense of independence when they're going to school back and forth. I remember the first time I took myself home when I was in high school. I went to boarding school in class 7 and 8, but tulikuwa tunakujiwa na kudropiwa by my parents. But now in high school, that's when we started experiencing going to school alone and coming back home alone. And it was exciting for me as a kid back then. But then looking at the parents now that I'm a parent, man, you think of all that is stacked against your child in their blissful ignorance, and you just leave it to God. You can't do much at some point. You're like, Mungu Baba, just hide my children under your wings, because man, there isn't anything I can do. And to hear of such stories, communicating through and through, only for the last communication you have to be telling you she's maybe some 13 kilometers from where she's supposed to alight, and then that's it. Then you get a phone call, you hear your child wailing in the background, then no communication whatsoever. Ah, man. Hey.
And then after that, after wailing in the background, the next story you hear is that
you hear there's a body floating. No, and once you hear that, unajuanga tu saa zingine. I don't know if this has ever happened to you guys, when you have lost a family member that is close. In one way or the other, you feel it or you know it before you are told. In some strange way. Intuition. I don't know if it's intuition or it's instinct. Communication from God directly to just prepare you. This is something that has happened to me personally. Before you even get the knowledge of the actual passing of the individual that is so close to you, you get a premonition of sorts of the exact situation that you're going to find ahead. And I can imagine if when the mother heard that there's a body floating somewhere.
You know, the sad part, Jane, is that a post-mortem has revealed that the pupil was defiled, then strangled.
Like, why? Why would you do all that?
And let me just tie that to this particular story here before we get to the Star Vic. This is a story that I had just briefly mentioned here. It's on page 8, where rogue police top list of contract killers. And this, not just rogue police, we also have core criminals and hitmen, corrupt law enforcers, and hardcore criminals are reported to be the most dangerous assassins in Kenya. And this is as per a report that was dubbed Targeted Killings in Eastern and Southern Africa that was done by the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crimes. And as per this report, the National Police spokesperson dismissed this report, saying it's inaccurate, it's erroneous, because they don't have data to support any of these claims, especially when it comes to extrajudicial killings. But by virtue of seeing something like this happen when children are coming home from school, doesn't it even scare the police service to just even want to do more, as opposed to being at the forefront to dismissing a report that was done by a global entity? My 2 cents.
Yeah. I think they say that the first rule is deny, deny, deny. Whether you're caught red-handed.
Oh yeah. Actually, that's the 11th commandment. Thou shalt never get caught. As put by Jeffrey Archer.
And when you're caught?
Not me.
And when you get caught?
Thou shalt never get caught. And when you're caught, deny, deny, deny. The 11th commandment. Actually, that's a book. Those people who enjoy reading a good book, Jeffrey Archer, anytime.
Vic.
All right. Quick look at what's happening here in the newspaper. We've talked about the story of UN top court favors Somalia in Indian Ocean border dispute, and the court says that it would be inappropriate to delimit a boundary based on median line. The court said that the 14-judge bench, that is panel, instead drew a new line that has split the disputed area into two, saying that the best solution is an equitable solution. So that is as far as that is concerned. Talk of Raila's promise cabinet slots for youth if voted. A quick look at that. He said that if he's elected, he will include for youth. He promises that was made on Tuesday, that's yesterday, in a bid to charm the youth ahead of next year's general election. Raila, who has escalated his 2022 presidential campaign, said that his government will also reserve more appointments for the youth. And that is his promise. He asked the youth people to be part of his journey by campaigning for him. Okay, to other stories. Embrace diversity. Uhuru tells world leaders in New York City. President Uhuru Kenyatta has told the world leaders to end the silo mentality that has seen some states, largely in Africa, excluded from key decisions affecting the globe. He castigated the use of one-size-fits-all prescriptions and templates by powerful global institutions in dealing with Africa's challenges. That is President talking there. You talked of, Regina talked of the issue of nicknames to appear on ballot if bill passes. That bill is the Senate has published the Election Amendment Bill 2021, which allows the Electoral Commission to include a candidate's popular name on the ballot. We have a couple of them. We have Baba, we have got Hasla, Weta, we have got Madividi, we have got Manistivo, and all that. So even Babuino, his real name is not Babuino, not Bab. He has real name, and most of these, politicians out there. But they will have to wait until that bill is passed. All right. So DPP has new evidence in Obado's new graft case. Mugambi has allowed the defense 1 day to go through the evidence. The court had that the prosecution intends to produce 500 new pieces of documentary evidence to prove their case against the governor and his co-accused. So 500. State Counsel Eva Kanyuria said that, told the anti-corruption court that 500 new additional documents were inadvertently not supplied to the defense. Quickly, I want to bring to your attention something here, ladies. This is Matter Sports. But before then, Nick Mwendwa said that, that is the FKF president, said that not even Mourinho, nor even Mikel Arteta can save Harambee Stars. He was speaking in one of the television stations here in the country, and said that the only thing that is now needed is for new and fresh talent. Not even the intervention of Arsenal's Mikel Arteta or AS Roma's Jose Mourinho can salvage Harambee Stars from the jaws of defeat. FKF President Nick Mwendwa has admitted. Okay.
I agree with his statement.
Need fresh talent.
I agree. No, Victor, I agree. Mikel Arteta of Arsenal cannot even save. If he cannot save Arsenal,
even Mourinho,
from losses left, right, and center, how can he help our Harambee Stars? Correct.
Not that direction, Regina. Not that direction.
I agree. Nick, for the first, I'm actually agreeing with Nick Mwendwa on that aspect. Mikel Arteta cannot.
Perspectives are different.
Yes, cannot help Harambee Stars. Tick. If he cannot help his own team, how would he be helping our team?
But what's that issue of fresh talent all the time?
So in this case, the players are the problem.
We always need something fresh.
But when have you ever
heard
the politics within FKF? And I'd want to challenge Victor. When last did you hear that they are doing a recruitment of fresh talent to join Harambee Stars? Have you?
Actually, across the country, there's so many talent academies across the country. But then now, implementation of, and just supporting these young talents is now the issue here. When you go to national ball games, you'll be shocked that the kind of talent displayed out there is just amazing.
The local teams.
The local teams. And, I don't understand how FKF, we still recycle, it's now forcing even some of the senior players to retire. prematurely because of the embarrassment. And remember, they also have a name to keep outside there where they play for the professional football. So it's, yes, Tunik Mwendwa, something has to be done, man. Arabic Tasman, tulichapa 5-0.
See, ilikuwa 5 ama ni 6 jamaa.
Tulichapa 5-0.
Oh, ni 5 yeah.
Yes, and then pia tukakuja tukafinywa moja nyumbani. So sad.
That's why we cannot even be helped by Arsenal's coach there, Mikel Arteta.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so let me just speak a bit from that concern or issue, if I may mention. This in regards to youth getting jobs, tenders, if Raila Odinga is to be elected president come 2022. And this is a story, if I can say, conversation, talks that never miss. Anytime a politician is there on the ground speaking perhaps of even popularizing their bid. And maybe I can just read a bite from what he said while addressing Mount Kenya youths. He said, I believe strongly that we should make use of the energy of our youth who make up about 70% of our population. If you don't give them the education and skills, they become a curse, delinquents, drunkards, and criminals. But if empowered, they become a source of wealth. And Ray said something important when you were beginning, why has it become so much important to just go to the youths at this point in time? It always happens anytime there's an election, and this is why we keep saying all the time is that be informed, be knowledgeable, that even when you go to that ballot come 2022, you vote from an informed perspective as you make wise decisions. Away from that, coming to COVID-19 intertwined with Mashujaa Day, which is coming up next week on Wednesday. And this is just how the government is really trying to rush to hit that 5.8 million vaccine target. That is by Wednesday of 20th October. And also the government is just trying to do this all in a bid to ensure they hit that 10 million target by end of December, which is just about 2.5 months away. And they have laid out some strategies. So far, the state has vaccinated about 4.2 million Kenyans and is targeting to vaccinate 1.6 to just hit that 5.8 million mark by next week, Wednesday. So some of the things they've put in place is to ensure they rely on the 47 county governments to implement a sustained community mobilization by bringing the various cadres of leaders to sensitize the masses on the need to take the jab. Also, over 7.5 million doses of the 5 types of vaccine approved for Kenya have already been distributed to various places, various counties, and the various hospitals that are designated to vaccinate Kenyans. Just again, this article continues to highlight that Kenyans need to go out there and get vaccinated. Remember, if we want the state to fully reopen the country, it's going to be informed by the number of persons that are going to be vaccinated, at least also by end of December. So this is why they've put up in place different ways, different drafts of measures to try and ensure that all this target they want to reach, they get to reach that target by the time frames and timelines they've put in place there.
Doreen, as we come to a close, I'd want to read some of the feedback that we get on Twitter,
yeah.
And borrowing heavily on that conversation about, inclusion of the youth, that now the youth is the next niche, or rather frontier, for voters, for vote hunting, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So Churchill Amantha says, Ray Manyara, some in the meeting were not youth, is being simplistic. So you mean women or youth at the service at your church must strictly be attended by women or youth? I think, Churchill, you missed the point of that conversation. We were saying what constitutes the youth in as far as, the age bracket is concerned. Who is considered youth? Because a majority of time you'll see people who are aged 50 and above still claiming that they're within the youthful bracket. That's where I was coming from. I had no problem with the elderly or the old people attending this meeting. But the issue is what constitutes youth? And if it is a youth agenda, can we for the first time put our best foot forward and have the youth actually who constitute the ones who are unemployed, the ones who are employed entrepreneurs thinking about a better tomorrow? Because most often than not, the youth is promised milk and honey, so to speak, but it never materializes.
So,
my point was and still remains. The youth need to sit at the table in as far as policy making is concerned. That is the only way their agenda is going to be included. And the people who should be leading the youth agenda should be the youth, not because you have a youthful demeanor, as they say, youthful demeanor, or you have the youth at heart, because these are things that we've been told in so many forums that you see, hata kama mimi ninakaa mzee hivi, mimi bado ni kijana.
Those things of 21 to
mimi
forever.
bado ni kijana. Truth is, wewe si kijana, you know? And this is a narrative that has been sold to the youth demographic as defined even by the Constitution. Yeah? For so long. And that is where I was coming from. So if you kind of felt that it was simplistic, well, as we say, we are always open to feedback. Continue reaching out on Twitter. My Twitter handle is at Regina Manyara. We have Doreen Arange. We have a Doreen Arange Traffic Marshal A1, that is. We have a Jain Wambui and at Victor Oloo. The official station handle remains at KBC Channel 1 News. Watu wa Lower Lands, to you.
But also, before they come in, I want to say, actually I'm with you on that, Ray, because the way you're saying, when you have these forums for youth, why does the bigger chunk why is it that the bigger chunk is formed by those 50 and above? I mean, it doesn't say that we need not to have them. We can't have them, but also let the young people form the bigger part of that kind of meeting, because then again, how are you having a 60-year-old trying to push your agenda as a 30-year-old, as a 25-year-old, and then you tell me as a young person, I'm in the table, I'm in that space. It doesn't really add up, doesn't make sense. So they can still be there, but also let the young people form the bigger part, so that when you get to that office, you understand the issues of these young people, whatever they face. And if actually you're a legit leader, then you know how to tackle and assist the young people.
They need to shadow the youth, and when time comes, they hand over the reins. So the old cannot exist without the young, and the young cannot exist without the old. But it's a high time that we give, more responsibilities, more leadership opportunities to the youth. That's my take.
Basically just what Baba is saying, they are going by this article, only that it needs now to be actualized, because what you're saying is basically what he said. We're going to give more opportunities to the young people, empower them, give them skills, give them tenders, give them jobs. Hope it's not just a talk. Maybe this time could be actualized to make it more real.
Anyone who missed that clip, KBC Channel 1 was there covering that particular event that was happening at one of the auditoriums at the University of Nairobi there. And so much was said from this particular youth, where one said, when you are making these appointments, cabinet secretaries, members of parliament, such and such, those ones are elected. But when you're making these appointments, so to speak, when you hear an 89-year-old man or woman is leading a certain docket, and you're wondering, okay, so at what point will I get an opportunity to head such a docket?
I think, Regina, just to weigh in as we close. Yesterday we had a discussion here with Wakili, and he said that in Kenya, election is divided in different categories. We have got people living with disabilities, we have the women, we have the youth, and so forth and so on. You know what happens? The fact is 70% of voters are the youth. And they're the people who will determine who's going to be the next president. Youth are loyal people. But if you sway them otherwise, you will miss that mark. People living with disability is also a very important group, and women. Women are also loyal. They will wake up early in the morning, go, line, vote, and come back. And by the way, according to research, according to women voters, once they decide and say they are going to vote for person A, it's so hard for you to drift them. That is how they vote. That is why unasikia wamama wamama, you get it? They work with emotions, and once you can easily get the attention and the emotion of a woman, you've won. To the youth, I always say these three words: Victor, just begin. If you're a youth, just begin. Watakupata huko mbele.
Na hivyo ndo tunafunga ITH.
Yeah.